Hello, Magical Mummas, and welcome to the Magical Mothering Podcast. I'm Dania Foster, elemental energetics therapist and nurturer of mamas who are struggling with disconnect whilst raising highly sensitive kids. Today, I'm talking with Claire Roe, the wellness witch, about her journey to trusting her path to homeschool her children. Claire is an intuitive healer and psychic who works with people who are feeling stuck or disempowered and seeking to make radical change. So, Claire, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Dania.
So good to have you here. So I'd love for you to just introduce yourself to our audience by telling me a bit about your family.
So I am a busy mama of 4 children, one stepchild who is 12 and still in mainstream school, 5-year-old twins who I've just started my homeschooling journey with, and a full of life 2-year-old as well.
Beautiful. And how is it that you came to living this homeschool journey this past, or just this year you started?
Yeah, well, you played a very big part in that. So I've been following your work and your page for a few years. I don't even know how long. And I remember when my children were in kindy, kind of having this feeling of wanting to do this and wanting to sort of be more involved in their schooling journey.
Yeah.
And didn't listen to myself for a long time. They stayed in kindy. They started kindy really late.
Yeah.
But we sort of pushed through all of those challenges. And then in 2020, when the lockdown happened, I really noticed that Cora was thriving at home.
Yeah.
But then didn't listen to myself again. And they started mainstream school last year. They did prep at our local school.
Yeah.
And then a few things throughout the year, and then actually connecting with you and sort of following your journey a little bit more closely really inspired me to just be brave and realize that I can actually do it.
Oh, I'm so grateful that you shared that with me, because I have no idea who's following me and getting inspiration from what I share. But that's the intention of why you put yourself out there, and you think, oh, is this too much? Am I sharing too much of my life and what we're doing? Does anybody care about all of this stuff? So it's really nice to hear that it's had such a positive influence on you. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. I like all of the alignments in how you live and how I strive to live, or how I've sort of strived to parent, and that kind of journey through magical mothering is really, it just really resonated with me. It's influenced a lot of how we do things around here. So thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'd just love to jump in. I'm going to poke a question in here. Is like, I'd love to hear your explanation of what magical mothering means to you.
Well, this has been a bit of a journey to try and find a sort of answer to that question. But I think what I've come home to, especially in the last few months, has been being able to pivot, like listening. Before I had my children, I was a very corporate minded sort of I guess like focus driven kind of person. Like things had to be a certain way, and I would push through whatever I needed to push through to make things happen that way.
Yeah.
And then raising sensitive children has definitely taught me to relax with all of that and kind of not have the expectations that I had before.
They like prompt us to lean into our flexibility, or it's more so a forced surrender, isn't it? It's like you have to, because there's no other way. Yeah. It's either you do it, you surrender to flexibility, or you go insane. So what's your choice there?
There's been a few moments of insanity, I'm not going to lie.
No. We all have that.
But yeah, I really feel like listening to them too, that was something that in hindsight is kind of ironic that I wasn't aware of, but that I really hadn't tapped into, was how big a teacher our children are. That's definitely something I feel like I didn't understand until they were here.
Yeah, I often think that our motherhood is this big awakening in itself, because, not only are they our little mirrors, and they, like, with their sensitivities, they're highlighting all of our sensitivities that we've squashed down and masked and tried to hide from, to try and, look normal and play the part to fit into the adult world. And here are these little beings that are just shining it all back in our face and not allowing us to look away, because they're making us face it. And it's a huge evolution of self to step into this mothering role.
Yeah, 100%. And I really have noticed in myself the cycles that we go through with that, of surrendering, like we said, and, you know, sort of allowing those mirrors to shine back at us, and then the resistance that comes up within that as well. It's really powerful.
Yeah, and it's like every time you get to a new level, you'll meet that resistance, and then it's like, what do we do with this again? And go through the motions and come back around. So I have this question of I'm skipping around a bit just to see where this leads, but what were your biggest challenges when it came to walking this new path and going against the grain of what, you know, everybody else around you is doing?
The biggest thing where, this is really ironic now that I'm actually about to voice this. I'm like, this has been huge healing in the last few days, but the biggest thing for me was the aspects of childhood stuff, of trying to please and trying to do the right thing, and never quite meeting that mark. I spent a lot of time being misunderstood or sort of not doing the right thing. And I found that when I started to step into this journey, all of those fears came back up again about being judged like that or being misunderstood. You know, people, I feel like until you step into a journey like this, it's really difficult to understand. It's the same thing as motherhood, right? I had all these ideas of what kind of mom I was going to be, and then
Yeah, sorry, I just lost you for a minute there, but you're back. So yeah, we have these expectations of ourselves, and often when we have that idea in our head, it can be so challenging to try and fit that because like we were saying before, you know, we have to be flexible and surrender to all of these ideas and go with the flow of what our children are directing for us. You know, they're the leaders.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And I feel too, like in tying in with that sort of fear of judgment or fear of getting it wrong, are all of those natural fears that we feel. But I feel like they're just part of this mothering journey as well, aren't they? About like, what if we do the wrong thing? Or what if, you know, what if we're not giving them everything that we need to give them, you know? There's been a lot of that.
Yeah, a lot of that comes up when we're stepping into these like lesser walked paths. Is like, what if I'm not doing enough? What if I'm not giving them all of the opportunities that I wish that they have? What if I'm, you know, not delivering? And I love how you touched on that point about the you know, being like a good girl and following the rules. And, you know, if you've been in trouble for not following rules in the past and, you know, you've tried your hardest to stay in line, look at your corporate background, is that trying to make sure you tick all the boxes and get everything in on time. And then we have these children that just go and we can't even keep the house in order, you know. And if we allow it, it can feel really like failure because we're not meeting those expectations.
Absolutely. There's been huge turnarounds with my expectations and things like that. And with stepping into my power of owning that road less travel, you know, of allowing the house not to be as clean as, you know, it says, they say it should be, you know. All of those kind of things and all of those kind of judgments around what type of work the kids are doing and that kind of thing as well has been a really huge learning curve.
Yeah. So tell me, what were the tools that you used to help overcome these belief patterns that came up for you?
My number one is journaling. Journaling sort of my go-to for everything, but I found the conscious connection with what's coming up, like rather than just going, oh, that's just a fear, or, you know, like kind of writing these feelings off, but actually allowing myself to sit with them and to really understand what's coming up has been really important. And I think my children too, like they're probably the most powerful tool in this process because, like you said, they mirror things to us. And I feel like, especially when we're raising highly sensitive children, that they obviously sense a lot of what we're feeling too. So a lot of the fears that are presenting or that are being mirrored to me are actually things that I may not have been working on as well as I should have been. So just really sitting with them and having those conversations has been really helpful as well.
Yeah, that's really nice. So tell me about your journaling processes.
So I use my journaling in a lot of different ways, but I feel like probably the most relative to this experience or to working through these fears has been just allowing myself to sit and brain dump. You know, when that noise and that sort of mind chatter gets a little insistent or consistent, then I allow myself to just sit and really just release what's coming up. And some of it is absolute nonsense, as you know, but you know, some of it then is really powerful stuff to help in that next process or that next step of healing.
Yeah, I love that brain dump, and it just sort of it's that stream of consciousness, and it's like, just get it out. And I've actually started to just the past few days, because I've been really frustrated that I'll have these streams of consciousness when I'm in the middle of vacuuming was today, or doing the dishes. I've been talking to a few different people about, I'm so frustrated that I get these great downloads and then I'm in the middle of doing all of these motherhood tasks and they'll just slip out. And so I've been like grabbing my phone and filming myself just speaking them into my camera, and it's actually been really helpful for me to just be like, okay, now that's out, I can keep going on with my day. Yes. And so it's just like journaling, but in a more vocal form, because, you know, you're in the middle of stuff, you're not going to like go and get your journal and sit and write. So it's just like, this is the adaptiveness that we come up with as these magical mothers, where we make our journaling work in the moment to capture all of this magic. So it's
so funny that you say that, because talking into that flexibility and that sort of need to pivot when we have our children, when the twins were young, I would grab my journal, like I would just stop what I'm doing and just sit and record those downloads and kind of, and especially because being in that sort of mindset of needing to always get things done, it was like, if this was work related or whatever, like, this is so important, I need to do it, you know, and it would really just disrupt whatever I was doing.
Yeah.
So finding that balance between finding creative ways to get what I need out of it, as well as doing what needs to be done, like the vacuum.
Yeah, getting things done. Yeah, it's a flexible moment, because I remember, you know, juggling my diary in one hand while I'm helping them do something over here, and it just added extra stress, doesn't it, when you have to speak it and then it's done. You know, this is just, it's working for me the past few days, so that's good.
I love that.
Okay, so tell me about interest-led discoveries with your kids and how they're learning through play.
So this has been a huge area of unschooling for me, because again, like that sort of corporate idea that I was so ingrained in for such a long time kind of came through really, really strongly as we started. So we would get up in the morning and I'm like, have breakfast, get dressed, sit down and do some work. And it was like, this is not what we want to be creating. There was so much resistance and arguments and all of those things. So I've really had to consciously step back and allow them more space to explore. And it's been really incredible. Just this week, Cora announced that she's going to be a scientist when she grows up. So amazing. Everything has been science-based for the last few days. And I was worried about like putting too much focus into one area, or, you know, like, I mean, they're 5, it's not going to do any harm. But what I've noticed is through allowing her that space, she's actually reading more. She's doing maths because she's working out like, you know, little calculations of things and stuff like that. And it's so much more of a holistic approach if I step back and let her do it than if I'm in there kind of micromanaging. Yeah,
so true. And the thing is that they'll retain so much more when they've driven that exercise, when they're, you know, pulling out their supplies on their own back and setting it up and, you know, sourcing that information. And it's the amount of information that my kids retain about their topics of interest. I'm like, how do you remember all of this stuff?
I don't remember all of that.
Yeah, all of these ins and outs. And my daughter loves teaching me all about her. She makes slime and fidgets. She wants to be a fidget inventor. So
I love it.
all of these things. And yeah, just the amount of intense interest they have in these areas. And you're right that they get so many, such a breadth of information, like of subjects, if you like, because we're so indoctrinated to break learning into subjects that
Absolutely.
you know, you can see how each subject will unfold in one small interest if we just give it the space to allow it to unfold without putting it into boxes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, I mean, we're only coming into our 3rd month of this journey right now. That's been a huge part of my process, I guess, is trying to not put everything into boxes. Like, I've got a fear of authority. We've spoken about this before, but in my mind, quite often I have to remind myself that reporting isn't as scary as I think it is.
Yeah.
And sort of allow myself to relax with that a little bit too.
Yeah, I've just done my first report this last week and sent that off. So I did it in one day because I've of course put it off to the last minute because it wasn't something on that I wanted to do. But yeah, and it was really validating for me because it was confirming that I am allowed to live this lifestyle. This is completely legal. I'm doing everything above board. And anybody that wants to, you know, naysay or say that I'm doing the wrong thing, they've got no leg to stand on because I'm ticking the box and I got it done.
Yeah,
And
that's fabulous.
it's just like we're unschooling, and I'm writing in here our belief systems and the way my children learn and how we facilitate that. And I'm just like, yeah, this is the way. This is the way for
that's
us.
so fabulous.
Yeah.
So fabulous.
And because, yeah, we are in a space where we do just let them follow what they want to do. And we're really working on taking the pressure off because, you know, myself being like a high achiever in school. And then, you know, wanting to having that expectation that your children will be great at learning or whatever they're wanting to do, but taking that pressure off and not grading and not marking and not assessing, it's really quite freeing.
Yeah, absolutely. I really believe that. And something that has been really quite freeing for me too, this is actually something I was just reflecting on today, was when the kids started at prep last year, we had this idea, like we were aware of the things that we wanted to teach them that was outside the curriculum, outside like of the school curriculum. And we had all of these great intentions, but then as the year starts, like they're so tired when they come home, they've just peopled all day, they don't want to do anything. And I noticed today, just sitting outside and sunbaking with Kiva, like she wakes up in the morning and says, can we go and sit in the morning sun? We couldn't do that last year because, you know, morning rush and all of those things. Watching her ability to connect in with what she needs and with her own sort of natural connection with the world around her and stuff has just been absolutely fabulous.
Yeah. I love that. And I've noticed that in my children as well, because even though like at the beginning when they were younger, I would try and impose my curriculum of, you know, we're going to meditate and we're going to journal and we're going to, you know, learn about all of these types of energetic practices and like try and teach them the ways of the universe is how I said it. And then my eldest would be like, I'm not you, Mum. I don't want to know about that. But by just living my own life and following my own passions, I'll be like, hey, can you come in and help me with this? She'll be like, just a moment, I'm just meditating in the sun.
Yes,
So
I
she's
love
already
it.
doing it without being forced into everything. So that's the goal. I believe that's the goal, is that they're watching and absorbing and they'll take it on in their own way, which is what you want.
Absolutely. And it's so funny that you say that, because just yesterday I was reflecting on kind of my idea of what homeschooling was going to be like. And like that, we were like going to get up every morning and do yoga together and meditate together and all of this stuff. And I think we probably manage like one morning a week for on our mats together.
Yeah.
But what happens is I always take a second mat out when I'm doing my morning yoga. And, you know, every now and then one of them will join in. But when I walk away and go to make my cup of tea or do whatever, I notice that they come in and start doing their own like 5 minutes or something afterwards. So
Yeah.
that's been a beautiful experience to me.
That's what I found with yoga as well, is that if I suggest it, then they're no. But
Yes.
if I do it myself and then just leave it on, and then they'll come and join in. Yeah, that's the way it works in our house too. So it's nice, isn't it?
Yes.
Beautiful. So what are you excited about looking into the future?
I'm excited. There's so much I'm excited about. I'm like, I don't know where to start. One of the biggest things I'm excited about is the healing that we are carrying out in this experience together. Like I see so much of my own childhood wounds and stuff coming right up to sort of be seen and to be heard. But also just knowing that we're breaking those patterns and we're breaking those cycles so that my kids will hopefully be much more inspired to walk the paths less traveled and to kind of not feel like they have to, you know, go to any sort of extremes to fit in or to do the things that we did when we were kids.
That's right. Carry those burdens.
Absolutely.
Yeah, beautiful. So just to wrap us up, Claire, I'll let everybody know that you can find Claire on Facebook. Her page is Claire Roe, the Wellness Witch, and I'll pop the links in the description so you can go straight there. And Claire, would you like to tell us about your work or something that you're offering that anybody that might be interested in taking you up on your intuitive healing, your psychic readings?
Sure. So I do offer psychic readings online and in person in Redbank Plains. But I think the most unique offering that I have, and the offering that's sort of really been coming through over the last couple of years, is my healing, which I relate to heart stories healing. So it's tapping into my Irish ancestry of the Shanachie, which is the storyteller. So it's really about connecting in and channeling those stories through.
That sounds beautiful. I'll have to investigate.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Claire, and for sharing your story with us today. And thank you, everybody, for listening and for joining us and joining me, Dania Foster, for this Magical Mothering podcast. And I'll let you know, if you enjoy listening to our stories and philosophies, don't forget to click subscribe so you can get an update on my next episode and share it with your friends. And you can check out all the show notes at daniafoster.com/blog/episode 25. And if you'd like to have a more intimate container to work with me on becoming the grounded guide your child chose you to be, please come visit my website, daniafoster.com. I'd also love to invite you to circle with me in my online circle collective, where I hold space for our magical mothering journey in our sacred container every full and new moon. And together we can share our stories and what's really going on in our world. And you can find that community at daniafoster.com/circle.